So I had a thought that I wanted to capture, and I usually record this kind of thing on my voice memos on my phone. But even though I've just recently bought an amazing microphone for that, setup where I can just kind of sit down and record, I'm having volume issues with that, and it's just not quite exactly how I wanted it to be. Either way, I need to come up with a system where I can sit in front of this amazing microphone here and just relax, like lay back. In fact, I'm going to take my headphones off here, make it even more relaxed. Now there's no pressure. Now I'm just talking, right? There's something about hearing yourself talk that kind of screws with you. But I wanted to capture some thoughts here because I had a pretty amazing, I feel like amazing revelation that happened to me probably about like 3 or 4 days ago, something like that. I was watching this movie. It wasn't a movie. It's a show. It's called Full Circle, if I remember correctly. And I believe it's on Netflix or HBO Max or something like that. Regardless, it's Steven Schrodinger. I think it's let me just look up his name. Shit. Where's my phone? 1 second. Okay. Steven Soderbergh. Soderbergh. So that guy is the guy who, this is going to sound pretty funny, he directed Traffic. And I don't mean that he was a traffic cop. I mean, like there's a movie called Traffic. Gosh, who was all in that movie? I mean, freaking Benicio del Toro, Michael Douglas was in it. Catherine Zeta-Jones, Schwing. Even Selma Hayek, Schwing was in there, but just for a brief second. Tons of people in that movie. Great movie. I've always been a Steven Soderbergh fan. I've always been a fan of his. And so I'm watching this movie, and the movie, show. I was watching the show, and it's kind of involving like some superstitious kind of stuff, like involving, like Caribbean island kind of voodoo-ish kind of stuff, right? And the whole concept of the full circle seems to involve like this concept that was brought forth to me on trip number 5, The Answer, of the joke, right? About there being a setup and a punchline, and everything kind of comes full circle in that system. Everything is a joke. Everything has a punchline to it, and everything is in and of itself a punchline to something else, etc., etc. I don't want to go into the whole thing about what that joke is. Again, I've covered it on so many episodes, but the show that I'm watching is very much kind of like that. It's the serendipitous kind of things involving voodoo and magic and stuff like that. It's and I started noticing a pattern there, and a pattern that is very prevalent in not only life, existence, the universe, or what have you, but a pattern specifically in this system of jokes that I've been kind of hanging my hat on as the end all be all for so long. And when I say so long, it's only been like 2 years. But regardless, I've put a lot of stock, a lot of faith, and a lot of energy and belief and everything into that concept. It's a very important concept to me. And if you're locked into this existence, in this universe, in your brain, in your mind, in your psyche, it is the most important and the highest level of in my opinion, of I'm going to stop short of saying knowledge, maybe enlightenment. I don't know, that you can experience physically. And the reason I have reached that conclusion. Okay, so again, let me step back. That's the extent, right? In my opinion, physically, in this physical universe, locked into your physical mind and brain and all this other stuff, and the limits of your intellectual capacity, or whatever, however you want to say it. That is the limit. The joke is the limit. But what I noticed in this show is that it's very much a zero-sum kind of game, right? And it has to be. In a closed-loop system of setup and punchline, it has to be a zero-sum game. If everything is a joke and everything is a punchline for another joke, and they're all interconnected, if you move one thing over here, another thing on the other side has to move too. It's the whole yin and yang principle. It's anything you can ascribe to this whole kind of joke concept. Hopefully you understand the concept, and hopefully you kind of understand and appreciate this parameter or whatever you want to call it of it being a zero-sum game. And so the problem here is that so how do I bridge this with what I gleaned from that show? So what I noticed in that show is that bad things just kept compounding on top of each other. Like you're trying to right a wrong over here, and in order to do so, you have to wrong a right somewhere else. And what I saw in this show, and it's something that I myself know to be true, not only being told this from God, but also extrapolating and diving deep into the concept, is the case. Like if you stray off of kind of God's path, right? This system of jokes that he's set up, if it's just going to be compounding, right? Like bad decisions, bad intentions just continue on down the road, and it creates this daisy chain of anything with kind of like-minded energy or whatever to kind of glue to and glom to, and it just becomes this tragic nightmare of these jokes. But regardless, you move something over here, you have to move the opposite on the other side. It's a zero-sum game. And there's this fella on my YouTube channel who kind of clued in on this kind of zero-sum game as well. But this guy, I just think he's great. Fantastic mind on this person. His name is, his YouTube handle is Ancient Gear. So shout out to you out there. This guy, you can tell that he's spiritual to some degree. He believes in God. In fact, he mentions it every now and then, but he's very skeptical. And I believe that everyone should be skeptical on this kind of thing. And just a little side note, y'all, apparently the word Israel means to wrestle with God. And apparently, I don't know how this is possible, but apparently God likes that. Like, he likes the struggle. He wants you to constantly dig and seek. That's the kind of God that I would be. Like, I don't want you to take everything at face value. Now, granted, I am God, and it's like at some point I want you to just submit, but do your research, struggle a little bit, wrestle with me. You know, don't just be a mindless dog. You know, find me for the right reasons. But anyway, so this guy kind of embodies that. He's at war with himself and at war with God, but in a good way, because he believes, but he has these creeping doubts that I certainly had my whole life, up until I had my unbelievable God encounter. But he mentioned something that really stuck with me. He said, you know, hey, you know, God keeping on saying stuff like, hey, you're beautiful, everyone's beautiful, everything is beautiful, anything that God created is beautiful. It kind of cancels itself out. If everyone is the same level of intelligence, right, then no one is intelligent. That's in a really weird roundabout way. That's me kind of summing up his argument, is that the same thing can be applied to beauty and love. It's like, hey, if everyone is beautiful and we're all beautiful inside and out, but your soul specifically is so beautiful and amazing, and if God loves you, you know, loves all of his creation the same or whatever, then it all kind of cancels out, and what are we left with? And there was more to his argument, but that had me scratching my head. I was like, that's a very good point. If we are dealing with a zero-sum kind of situation here. And that's where I think this whole thing falls apart. The joke, the whole concept of love canceling itself out, the whole concept of beauty canceling itself out, it all falls apart. If you only look at this world in a physical sense, then that definitely makes sense, right? But if you can, how do I explain this? If you can kind of grasp and understand the infinite, which is already impossible to do, then you can understand that there is a source for this beauty and this love. And this source needn't apply, it doesn't pertain to this physical world, is what I'm getting at. And if it doesn't, and I know this is a cop-out because we have no way to prove otherwise or whatever, all bets are off. And I've seen that on the other side. It's like, to try to describe infinite love and infinite beauty to someone in such a way that there is no zero sum, that God can pour infinite amount of beauty and love into something, and there's still an infinite amount left to give. It's something that you need to experience yourself to understand. And again, that is a total cop-out. But this is the joke, y'all. You can be in awe of the joke, which I was, and I still am. Like, in this physical existence, like, the joke is everything, right? The idea that our suffering can be turned and transformed into beauty and love is an amazing thing. I mean, go listen to my episode, Death is the Punchline, right? There's some controversy there. Not everyone really liked the message there, but I still believe and I still stand by that this is a beautiful message, is that when you die, your whole life and all of existence, because make no mistake about it, you are the center of the universe, period. It's proven, actually. And what I mean by that is there is no center of the universe. The observer, it creates their own particle horizon. No joke. If I move my head 6 inches to the left right now, I have just created a particle horizon of the entire universe that is now 6 inches to the left. Period. The observer creates reality in this universe. It's proven. So you literally are the center of the universe here. You experience reality through your head, through your brain, through your mind, through your psyche, right? You experience everything that way. So this universe might as well have been created just for you. And I want you to hold on to that concept because this is very important. Not only will you yourself have a setup, like, again, think of the structure of a joke. It's setup and punchline. The setup is the exposition. The punchline is the beautiful, ironic, funny, however you want it, metaphoric, poetic twist that ties it. It ties the exposition and the setup in a perfect little ribbon. And that's essentially what a joke is. Now, granted, again, there are bad jokes. There are distasteful jokes. There are inappropriate jokes. But regardless, the universe is set up so that jokes play out. That's the whole kind of thing that I'm getting at, the whole kind of thing that I was taught. But it's very important here in the sense that, again, your life will have that. Your life is a joke. Your life that you're living right now is an exposition, a setup. And granted, there are micro jokes that happen in your life that are unbelievably amazing and stuff too, and they have their own micro setup and their own micro punchline that plays itself out as you live. But your entire life as a whole, there's a roll-up effect to where your whole life is a joke. Your whole life is a setup, and when you die, you are going to be delivered the punchline. And just like a joke, where you're like, where's this going? I don't get it. Why is there a talking dog in a bar or whatever? And then you're given the punchline, and you're like, oh my God, that is great. That is fantastic. That is hilarious. I love it. And it makes total sense. And why didn't I see that? It's amazing. That's exactly what's going to happen with your life. All of your suffering will be explained away in a perfectly little wrapped ribbon. But not just your suffering. Again, you are the universe. You are the center of the universe, quite literally. So all of suffering throughout the entire universe, y'all, not just on this planet, okay? And we can go down the list of all the terrible things that have happened on this planet, right? I don't want to go down that list again, because I do it on just about every episode. What do I say all the time? 85 million people dead in World War II, all this stuff. And by the way, of course, Mao Zedong, killed more people than Hitler, and so did Stalin, yada, yada, yada. I don't want to hear that argument again. But terrible things have happened on this planet. All of that will be given a punchline to. And it's all going to be this unbelievably amazing, almost, I'm going to stop short of saying hilarious, but it's going to be one of those things where you're just like, how about that? And it's going to be something that's been right under your nose the whole time. That's the best part. And I'm totally predicting that now. I have really no evidence of this, mind you, but it just makes sense. Like if I was a comedian writing the best joke ever, of all time in existence, right? I would make it to where it's not only the most amazingly ironic twist of fate, kind of like, wow, I'm in complete awe. Isn't that kind of funny? And y'all, I don't mean to make light or make fun of tragic stuff. I'm just saying that there's something on the other side that counteracts all of that suffering, and you'll see it. And you're not even going to give a crap what happened on this planet after you understand. But regardless, you'll be told the punchline, and it's going to just knock you over. But anyway, if I was a comedian, if I was the ultimate comedian, that's how I would write it. It's unbelievably beautiful, unbelievably amazing, unbelievably ironic, unbelievably metaphoric and poetic and stuff like that, but also something so incredibly simple that it was right under your nose your entire life. You interacted with it every day and didn't even quite acknowledge. Maybe you did acknowledge its existence, but you didn't acknowledge its importance. And it's going to be shown to you, and you're going to be like, oh, wow. And maybe you'll be different for every person. In fact, it likely will be. And that's the beauty, because God is infinitely powerful, and he can make the entire universe about this little thing that's right under your nose, but only your nose, not someone else's. For someone else, it'll be something different. But anyway, that's how I would write the joke. But here's the thing, y'all. That is still a zero-sum game. You are closing up a loop, right? There's an exposition and there's a punchline. What I'm getting at here is, I texted a friend of mine who became friends through this podcast, someone who resonated deeply with my journey. And I was watching that show, the Full Circle show, and it hit me all of a sudden out of nowhere. I was like, hey, you know what? I wonder if the joke is a trap. And, I sent that to my friend. I was like, hey, what, all this joke stuff, it might be a trap. And he's like, well, I want you to elaborate, right? Of course, we need to elaborate. I said, and by the way, this was at 11:11 p.m. I didn't even plan on that. I think I just realized something. The joke is the highest vibration in this existence, but it's a trap. Getting wrapped up in that joke will root you here in this existence. We need to transcend the joke. And he was like, what do you mean by that? And do you think that God would trap us? Curious to hear more about this. And I was like, okay, well, let me back up a little bit. Trap may not be the right word, but it hit me last night that this joke thing is a zero-sum game. The beauty behind the joke isn't, though. And so that's what I want to get at. And I don't know how I'm going to articulate this properly, or if I can at all. But what if, let me just step through this. Getting wrapped up in the joke will root you here in this existence. We need to transcend the joke. So I had this thought earlier of, what if I didn't need to tell you a joke in order for me to convey this beautiful sense of irony and metaphor and poetry to you? What if I could, I don't know, what if I could just instantly, telepathically just zap that humor over to you, right? And that glee and that, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, I don't have to tell you the joke. Like, think about the funniest joke you've ever heard in your entire life, and how much that made you laugh and how good it made you feel. And imagine not needing to be told a joke to feel that. And that you just had that instantly. Like the zenith, y'all, of just ironic, fun, poetic happiness, glee, whatever you want to say. And I think that it's kind of impossible in this world, right? There might be moments of this, where you just feel this way for no reason whatsoever, but I can't think of one, y'all. But to me, there's always a stimulus in this existence that makes you feel like that. And so what if there was no joke and you just felt like that? And that's when it kind of started to hit me, was there is a source to all of this beauty and all of this love and all this, even the concept of poetry and all this other stuff to begin with. There's a source to it. God doesn't need to tell himself a joke, y'all. The joke is necessary in this existence only. In this in this universe, or however in this multiverse, or whatever you define as this existence, the joke is necessary and needed for this. There has to be a tiny break in symmetry. Make no mistake about it, perfect symmetry cancels itself out. So that may kind of, I may be leaning a little bit more on the side of my other, I'll call him a friend. Yeah, why not? My other friend, Ancient Gear, about how beauty and love would cancel itself out, right? Well, I would say that in this universe, in this existence, in this multiverse, again, however you want to explain existence, symmetry is how most, even physicists would define beauty, right? They would define beauty as symmetry. But if something is perfectly symmetrical, think about this. It's actually quite boring. And in a lot of times, symmetry does actually cancel itself out. And my point of this is matter and antimatter. There was like a 0.00000, I don't remember how many decimal points, like 0.000 blah 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 1% of a imbalance in matter versus antimatter at the beginning of the universe. The tiniest flaw in symmetry that caused everything that you see today. Otherwise, everything would have perfectly annihilated itself and canceled itself out, and the universe would only be filled with radiation right now. Impossible for matter to form. And so there seems to be a degree of asymmetry woven into creation. And I think it has to be that way because, again, if you saw the most beautiful face, which is divined by symmetry, it would actually be quite boring. And it would cancel itself out. If perfectly symmetrical faces were beauty, all faces would be the same and they would be quite boring. Beauty, in essence, lies in imperfections and slight asymmetry. And it always has been. You can appreciate symmetry and the beauty of that, but it is the asymmetrical differences that sets it apart and makes it unique and makes it beautiful. And it has to be that way. Otherwise, again, existence there would be no existence. All forms of life, y'all, are asymmetrical. There's nothing in this universe that is perfectly symmetrical. Nothing. The only way that life is even able to take shape, y'all, is asymmetry. And so think about what that asymmetry means. Think about what it all means for a second. You need imperfection. You need asymmetry. You need something that by its definition means not beautiful, because remember, beauty is always symmetrical, right? You actually need something that is not beautiful for something to be beautiful in this existence. And that is something that I call a hilarious joke. And again, seems to be baked into reality, baked into existence as a whole. You can call it an initial condition set at the time of the Big Bang, or the time of creation, however you want to label the Big Bang, if there even was a Big Bang. I firmly believe there was, but again, and I haven't done my enough research on the new stuff coming from the James Webb Telescope, but I've heard that we might be, for me just reading headlines, I've heard that we might need to kind of change our story a little bit on the whole Big Bang thing, that there's galaxies and black holes and stuff that are forming way earlier than they should have been, way earlier than they should have been. But you can throw on a new scientific theory that the edge of the particle horizon and it's the way it seems to be expanding faster on the edges than it is towards the center, that it could be a mirage, right? Which makes a lot of sense to me. If you look at a mirage, things seem to warp more. Could be a mirage. And so again, regardless, all bets are off here, y'all. We're just a bunch of monkeys trying to figure out cosmic stuff, and we're going to get stuff wrong, and we always will. So you have to fall back on stuff that is more, I'm going to stop short of saying the word plug and go. I'm going to stop short of using the word modular. But you need something more fundamental to fall on that you can plug and go. And to me, that's this whole joke thing. But regardless, this whole concept of needing asymmetry to make something more beautiful is basically saying you need something ugly to make something beautiful. But it's actually the pairing of the two. You need to combine beauty and ugliness to arrive at something that is more beautiful. You could argue that imperfection is perfection. You can't arrive at a masterpiece, y'all, without something to counteract that masterpiece. If everything is a masterpiece, just like my boy Ancient Gear said, then there are no masterpieces. And this has all kinds of implications when you're talking about the concept of evil and why it exists and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to speculate on that, y'all, but I'll put it to you this way. This is going to be a weird way to put it. There's a band, it's one of my favorite bands ever, and it's a band called Sleep. And they're a stoner metal band, okay? I don't smoke marijuana or whatever. It's not my thing. But I do love stoner metal bands. They're incredibly slow, incredibly bluesy, incredibly heavy. Basically, you take Black Sabbath and you put them on Valium. I've never done Valium either, but I understand it to make you very drowsy and slow. But you put Black Sabbath on Valium and let them go. And then you tone down their instruments like 8 steps. And then it's just the slowest, heaviest, epic. Shoot, I'll put some in here right now. So, I mean, just epic stuff. Kind of a ridiculous band. In fact, they have a lot of songs, y'all, and a lot of songs, and I'm almost getting kind of sick of this, honestly, because they kind of like just hit this one kind of groove and just stuck with it for, like 15, 20 years, probably more like 20 years. Yeah, 20 something years. They just hit this groove and got stuck there. And it's basically these long droning single note kind of, maybe they do a little power chord or something like that, but it's just and it was cool like the first few times that I heard it. And I still go back to those songs that I love from that. But it just kind of like just kept going. But and a lot of people don't like the band Sleep because of that. And I started to kind of be like, okay, well, maybe I should kind of dislike them too. But then I realized that there needs to be a band like Sleep. There absolutely needs to be these avant-garde extremes on either side. absolutely, there needs to be incredibly fast speed, like the fastest thrash, speed metal, death metal that you can possibly get. Just kind of stuff. And then you need something on the complete other side that's just you need it. And the reason you need it is because, otherwise everything will just cancel itself out. The only way for the system to work, y'all, is for there to be asymmetry mixed with the symmetry. And if you open up the window for asymmetry, you're opening up the window for extremism, or extremism sounds like political, right? Your extremities, okay? And I don't mean arms and legs. You are opening the window. You have to. That's just how it works. The second you open up the possibility for asymmetry, you're going to get extremes, period. And the extremes are necessary for the whole to work and to be more beautiful than the sum of its parts. And that is exactly what I think God has done with his masterpiece. I'm not going to comment on the extremities of evil and why they're allowed and all that stuff, but I will tell you that in this system of jokes, it's going to make perfect sense in the end. Perfect sense, beautiful sense. And what a beautiful gift that you're suffering and everyone else's suffering in the world will be turned into a beautiful answer at the end. And regardless if you think right now that you are going to be offended by that or not, right? Because a lot of people will say, I don't care if it's a joke and that I will get this beautiful answer. It's still not cool that all this happened in the first place. So I'm going to have a bone to pick with God when I die and he tells me the joke. I'm going to be like, hey, that was really great, but screw you, buddy, because all this didn't. No, y'all, you will not have the capacity to say, screw you, buddy. You know why I know this? Is because God knows you more than you know yourself. And he knows exactly what is going to make you weep tears of joy and beauty. And it's not that and I can already hear people saying, well, he's playing a trick on you then. No, it's not a trick, y'all. He loves you that much and knows you that much and is intimate with you that much that he knows exactly what your punchline is and what it needs to be. And when you get that punchline, y'all, you will not be able to utter a single thing. You will not even believe what you're seeing. You will not believe what you're hearing and feeling. It's going to be so beautiful. You will not be able to even speak. And of course you won't, because we're going to be dead and we're going to be like pure energy. And that's the only way that you can absorb this infinite amount of love and beauty is if you're in spirit form. But you won't be able to utter a grievance, y'all, because there will be no grievance. You dip your toe into paradise and tell me that problems exist. But anyway, what I'm saying here, in such a roundabout way, I just went off on a tangent there, big time, is if you don't need to be told a joke to get the humor, to get the beauty, to get the poetry, then you have risen above the system. You get what I'm saying here? You don't need to tell me this joke. I already have infinite joy in me. And that's why I believe that the joke and the punchline to the joke is the last thing that we experience before we die. It's like as we're dying, our last little send-off of this existence is to close the loop of this zero-sum game that has to be a zero-sum game because that's apparently, I don't know, maybe God didn't need to set this up as a zero-sum game. Maybe he could, and I definitely know that he can change the rules, but I'm not going to question that, y'all. It's still a masterpiece. I can't imagine it any other way. But I'm a human. Of course I can't imagine it any other way. He certainly could change the rules to make it different, but for whatever reason, this is his masterpiece. And when we die, as the last little kind of handshake of this zero-sum game, like, hey, you're out of the system now. Let me show you that all of it was worth it. Here you go. Check this out. Boom. Wow. That is your last little ribbon before you move on to something, or you don't need jokes anymore. You are clued in, you are tied in, you are merged and melded into the source of all humor and all beauty and all poetry to begin with. There's no need for jokes in this kind of system, y'all. So you can get wrapped around the axle. I never thought I always say wrapped around the axle in just about every episode, and it's usually about getting wrapped up about, petty, stupid stuff. Y'all, this joke thing and the beauty behind it and all the poetry behind it is the furthest thing from a ridiculous thing to get wrapped around the axle about, y'all. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Like the me from a year ago or a year and a half ago or whenever it was that I recorded Trip 5, The Answer, or especially after I had the trip itself. If you would have picked my jaw off the floor after that trip and said, "Hey, Andrew, don't get wrapped around the axle about this joke thing," I would have punched you right in the face, because I would have been like, "No, this is the most mind-blowing and amazing thing that has ever happened to me in my life. This whole concept of a joke, you get the heck, I will punch you right in the neck as hard as I can." But y'all, I'm telling you, even though it's the highest vibration in this existence, how do I say this? I'm trying to formulate a new thought here. Even though it's the highest vibration in this existence, don't get wrapped around the axle. Appreciate it. Oh man, I can't formulate this. Of course, you have to get wrapped around the axle, but in the right way. I'm trying to just develop these thoughts on the fly here. Get wrapped around the axle, but not in the sense that the joke is the end all be all, because it's not. Those who, I'll never forget, I was in a hardware store one time getting, I don't know what, I think little tiny light bulbs for my license plate. One of my light bulbs had went out. And I walked into this hardware store, and there's this guy behind the counter who's arguing with his friend about Jesus, if I remember correctly. And they're going back and forth. This one guy, you can tell this guy goes in there all the time, and they give each other crap all the time. But the guy behind the counter was like, "Hey man," he kicked his friend out, like, because his friend was playing the devil's advocate, and his friend was like, "I'm not having this today, man. Like, I know Jesus to be real, etc." And he kicked him out. Guy, so I'm already like, wow, I'm just keeping my mouth shut on this one because I have my own opinions here. But the guy behind me was also kind of involved in this argument. He jumped in at some point, and he basically said, he was like, "Hey man, I used to be religious. I used to believe in God and Jesus and all this other stuff. And I used to go to church." And I think he said something about, I used to be a dean or a deacon, or I don't remember. But he goes, I don't believe in that stuff now. I believe in karma. And I wanted to say something. It's one of the, like, y'all, I'm not a good freestyle rapper. Okay. I can create some great rap lyrics if I sit there and write them out and over time, and take my time and come up with some good lyrics. I can write some funny. Me and my brother, we had an actual rap group growing up. We played. We had a heavy metal band. I can give you everything. But we also, as a joke, like, wrote rap songs and stuff.
These bitches whack, talking shit behind my back, talking so much I gotta throw away my pack of condoms. I got problems with these tricks.
We even, as a joke, did Christmas albums.
You better lose yourself in the Christmas moment. You want it, you better never let it go. You only get one shot.
Oh boy, the good old days.
You lost that Christmas spirit.
Anyways, sorry about that tangent there. I couldn't help myself, just kind of reliving some nostalgia. But what I was trying to get at is that I was great at writing lyrics, but I was never really good at just coming up with something off the fly, like freestyling. And it's the same thing when I'm in like arguments or something. Sometimes I'm good or decent. Other times I just suck. And it's usually after the fact that I come up with some kind of rebuttal that's like, oh, why didn't I use that? And so I couldn't really say anything at the time. Again, not only did I not have my thoughts put together, but I also didn't want to have a friggin' debate, that I'm going to be there for an hour. But I wanted to look at this guy and say, man, if you think that karma is the full picture, that's I don't even know what percentage or what fraction of the whole picture that is. We'll call it, we'll give it a lot more credit than honestly is needed, and we'll say it's a third of the full picture. You're only understanding a third of the picture if you think that karma is the end all be all. The very next question that someone should ask themselves is, how is a system like this even possible? How did something how did this take shape? Is it possible that it took shape by itself? I would say no. There has to be something that prefers balance, something that prefers a closed loop, zero sum kind of system. That is, if you're only focused on that, y'all, you're only focused on a tiny little bit of the overall situation here. Okay. Now we can't really prove any of this, the other 2/3 of the equation here. We can't prove that, and that's because we are stuck in this joke system, and the existence of anything transcending that joke system is going to be the biggest joke, the biggest riddle of them all. It has to be that way. I say it has to be that way. It may not make sense to you, but it makes perfect sense to me, and I hate to be like, look at me over here with my perfect knowledge. I don't have perfect knowledge. I am just extrapolating on one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen in my entire life and experienced in my entire life. So let me see where I am at my time here. Right when I looked, 43:43. Of course. Now, again, it's not going to say 43:43 on your thing, because I'll be cutting a couple of parts out. There's a couple parts where I stumbled and said, or there's a long pause. But I'm legitimately recording this and saw, of course, I'm legitimately recording it. Guys, it's early in the morning. But I look down and it's 43:43, of course. And of course, the text message that I sent to my friend the other day when I had this realization about the joke being a trap, but it's not a trap. Y'all forget that word. But again, that was at 11:11. This crap happens all the time. So I don't know what I've accomplished today, other than to say that I think you could take all of that, y'all, and you can whittle it down to this simple statement. Existence is a joke. If you move something over here, something else will be moved over there to balance the equation out. The setup, no matter how you try to change the setup, the punchline is coming. Okay? And that is the balance. That is the other side of the equation. That's the other part of this zero-sum game. That's the yin to the yang. That is the right hemisphere of the brain as compared to the left hemisphere of the brain. And I want you to remember that in particular, left hemisphere versus right hemisphere, because I'm going to use that in a future episode that's going to freaking blow your mind. But yeah, it's like left hemisphere setup, right hemisphere punchline. But as cool as that is, as satisfying as that is, as beautiful as that is, it's still a closed-looped system, okay? It's still a zero-sum game. And above all else, it's still a system that requires a stimulus, which is hilarious because that was the name of my heavy metal band in high school and college. It still requires a stimulus around which this beautiful balance can nucleate. But y'all, there is a source, an origin. There is an alpha and there's an alpha and an omega of any of these essences in life that you experience, the experience of love, the experience of beauty, it's an infinite source. And anything that's infinite transcends a closed loop, zero-sum kind of system. Perfect symmetry above us, y'all, above this existence. Perfect symmetry can still be beautiful, infinitely so. And we're going to see it. In this universe, perfect symmetry does cancel itself out. But again, if you subscribe to this whole something created existence, that means that something had to bake those rules into existence. And if it did that, if it baked that in, then it is capable of not baking that in. And what I mean by that is perfect symmetry doesn't cancel itself out in higher planes of existence, where the joke and the zero-sum game doesn't matter. That's all I got today. Not my best work. I could have articulated this a lot better. But I like these better than when I sit down and write something out, because anytime I write something out and just read off of it, I think the people who have done voice work before, or people that have their own podcast or whatever, I'm sure you can tell when I'm doing that, when I'm reading something off of a paper versus just talking off the hip. See, I just screwed up. See, that's an example right there. Off the cuff. I like these better, even though I don't articulate myself as well, because they're just genuine. They're in the moment. And I wish I could do every episode like this, but I always leave a mountain of material that's so important. And that's why I'm going to start writing a book. For those of you who follow my podcast, this book will contain a lot of stuff that you've already heard. But I need to capture all the stuff because, y'all, there's some things that I'm likely not going to be able to cram into an episode lest you grab a razor blade and slit your wrist because you're so bored. I mean, there's so much stuff. I just went through emails and stuff that I sent to myself 2 years ago, trying to capture thoughts as fast as I can. And there's so much of them. So that's a bit of news. I think I've mentioned this before, but I really am getting serious about writing a book. What other news do I have here? Well, I'm broke, like horrendously broke. I do this filmmaking stuff, but I've noticed that in the summers, filmmaking, very much like catering, which my wife is in, comes to a screeching, grinding halt, especially in Texas, when it's 1,000,000 degrees in the shade, and Houston when it's 1,000,000% humidity too. And so everything kind of comes to a grinding halt, and I am broke AF. I am 200 subscribers away, or no, 100, coming up on 100 subscribers away from even being able to monetize anything on my YouTube channel. But likely because of the controversial subject matter, so first of all, even if I were to monetize, I'd probably get like maybe 2 cents a year. I don't know what the first going rate of monetization is, but it's got to be low. But not only that, surely YouTube will come breathing down my neck about like, hey, this is a very controversial subject matter. You need to remove this. You need to remove that. So y'all, I likely won't even monetize. What I'm getting at here is that I have set up a Venmo. I can't display the link on my YouTube thing on the actual video until I've reached a certain level of partner program monetization to begin with, but I can put it in the description. If you want to donate just even 50 freaking cents, y'all, it would help me out. And I'm telling you, it would. Yeah, I think I'm going to just rely on donation only kind of thing. I don't like the idea of monetization. I don't like it. So if you want to donate something, go ahead. Trust me when I say it will go a long way for me and my situation and my wife's situation right now. I love you all, and we'll talk to you soon. This is not the unpacking episode for what is it? I done forgot how many trips I'm on now. Trip 12, the eclipse one. I forgot. Beyond Belief. This is not the unpacking episode for that. This is just a random episode. So be expecting an unpacking episode, y'all. I discovered, let's just say I discovered a lot more things about what a blood moon represents culturally throughout the eons. You know, I'm talking like, anyways, I found out a lot more stuff about eclipses, and specifically blood moon eclipses, that almost changes the story of that whole experience. Unbelievable. That I will release something about that soon. I'm working hard on a 3-part episode about astral projection. And I also have some incredibly exciting, almost game-changing news about that whole thing. We'll see how it works out. But anyway, I'm going to be making a 3-part episode, or series rather, on astral projection and stuff like that. And I'm also going to do, probably a 2-parter or a 3-parter. I don't know how many parts about synchronicity, because there's been some amazing ones that have popped up recently. So that's the full scoop, y'all. I love you all. I'll talk to you all soon. Y'all are awesome. Bye-bye. But before we leave here, just continuing down the nostalgia train here, I mentioned earlier how I fancied myself a good rap lyricist or whatever. I was okay, truth be told. My brother, though, is fantastic, and so as we close out here, we're gonna kind of close out the episode with a little serenade from my big bro, dropping some rap genius on our "Lose Yourself in the Christmas Moment" song. Here we go. This is great.
Do not miss your chance again. This opportunity comes once in a year, my friend. Let's all get hopped up on eggnog and make some bad decisions. It doesn't matter if Christianity's not your religion. Traditions in your head feel like they're missing. Fixing your condition. Manful boys are on a mission. So listen to the words. It only comes once in a year. So you better spread around all that Christmas cheer. Buy a truckload of gifts to stack under the tree. Spend about 5 G's on a PS3. I got kids from the trailer park depending on me, waiting to see if I'm gonna spin this cheese. A couple of Benjis, 4 keys to pay the fees on this week. For a he or a she, forget the Bentley. It's getting even harder trying to feed and water the tree, then buy presents for my daughter, caught up between a street pharmacist and a father. But what are you gonna do, man? It's Christmas. You better lose yourself in the Christmas moment.
And that's it, y'all. That's all you get. If you want to hear more of my rap stuff, just let me know, man. Yeah. Anyways, I'll talk to you all later. Peace, and I love you all. And go out and hug somebody, and hug yourself too, because you deserve it. Love you all. Bye.